Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about Abbott Elementary and the show Abbott Elementary, and why we are not learning. Abbott Elementary, the U.S. hates teachers. Capitalism is destroying education, and why we our children, can't read books good and do math well and other things. So Abbott Elementary is a show that is on the ABC, I believe. It's like a 20-minute. It's pretty 20-minute classic TV. 20-minute length episodes. It's not. It's different from. I mean, we're watching a lot of Netflix and Prime and like longer form, like 40 to 60-minute shows. So Abbott is definitely like a, kind of throwback to, not really a throwback. It's just like we're not watching that much of that kind of classic on your cathode ray tube, sitting in your parents' living room, catching up on, the Full House, or just being in the room while it was on, as sometimes we would do. It's like a classic. I guess The Office was The Office like that. It's been such a long time. I don't really watching it. We don't really have a functioning TV in our house, so I just got like a. Speaking of school, I got a spitball I just like dislodged from the cavern behind my rear molar. I'm gonna shoot it at the mean girls in my class now. Anyways, so Abbott Elementary though is a show. Random spitballs coming out of my mouth caverns aside, is a show that is about a workplace in it's the Philadelphia, Always Sunny Philadelphia, always toxified water supply and polluted by both frack water, Agent Orange, and vinyl chloride from exploding Norfolk Southern train crashes. Beautiful Philadelphia, really beautiful place. Philly cheesesteak, hopefully no vinyl chloride in it. So Abbott Elementary is, I'm only half joking about that. We're gonna get to that. That's part of why children's not learning, because they're drinking lead and radon filled water. So Abbott Elementary is a show that takes place in a Philadelphia school in, let's call it, the not so nice side of the gritty themed cheesesteak place. You know what I'm saying? It's on the not, what is the fancy area? We know some people that live actually in Philadelphia. Lancaster is one of the areas. It's the area that's not the 25 room plantation era, colonial era giant mansions, where the police, even if your skin tone is just one shade darker than a piece of printer paper, and your nose is just a little too wide, your nose is a little too wide, your clothes looks, you're not wearing like a polo shirt that looks like it would show up at the the Trump Charleston era rally. If you're not like very, very much ready to go golfing, police will pull you over. So this is not where Abbott Elementary doesn't take place in that neighborhood, right? Or police will kick you out of their exurb. This takes place in the inner city, the ghetto. I mean, this is like, this is a very close to home show for me, because this is a show that was, Neofeud is a game. I might as well just throw it in there since I'm already talking about it. But Neofeud is a game that I created, obviously, and I'm constantly talking about. But the Neofeud game is also set in an inner city cyberpunk dystopia it's science fictional, and it's kind of satirical and science fictional. So it's got robots, and it's got half human, half animal chimeras. But it takes place, in a ghetto, in the poorer parts of a city, period, and in particular a Western capitalist liberal, U.S., EU, etc. style city, in Mumbai. I mean, if it was literally based on Honolulu crossed with New York, crossed with Los Angeles, crossed with Mumbai Shadow City, crossed with Rio, Okay, that's not really what I'm looking for. Where's the so these are so Neofeud is a lot takes place at night, but the main characters are actually very similar to the people in Abbot Elementary. So you have Protege is that kid in the middle smoking his, it's got neon and they've got silicon brains and they have reconstituted, forge melted, home furnace melted soda cans that are being converted into arm actuators and mega buster broken mega buster arms, but they're people that are in poverty, of a marginalized disproportionately of a marginalized ethnic social phenotype, right? And they are in the city with the very wealthy people in the floating palaces above. Now, like in Philadelphia they don't have floating palaces, right? They just have like very exclusive exurbs where the real estate goes for $1 million a quarter acre or more, just like in Hawaii, just like in New York, just like everywhere, right? And then everyone else gets to live in the toxic city that has no functioning toilets and and everyone lives like 30 to a house or something, or so just they disproportionately live in various types of poverty, because that's just the servant classes, right? And so, and then Carl Carbon, the main character, trying to find a picture of him. That's where the really fancy people live. So Carl, the main character, is, he works like with the impoverished people, but he's a social worker, social services, employee. He's trying to ostensibly, right, help, kids have a better opportunities, help families survive and give people the services that they need, as they don't have housing, as they lack education, as they lack healthcare. And the game starts out here where you're supposed to ostensibly helping those people. The teachers are ostensibly, right, providing the education. Teaching, that's a very important topic, which is that teaching, like policing, is not necessarily what the society, let's call it, is telling you, right? Which is that you think that social services ostensibly is about empowering people to get to getting people who have, for whatever reason, an inability to participate in the society, right, in the economy, in the country's life, right, work wise. They can't get a job, they can't get they don't have mental health problems, they have homelessness problems, they have food insecurity, they have what else, they can't afford their electricity, and I work for these kind of organizations when I was not doing full-time education and indie game dev outside of the United States systems, at Silver Spoon Cooperative. But ostensibly the social services system is about, right, connecting you with these services. Now, what it really is about is it's not really about connecting people with services. I mean, it on a surface level it is, and ideally it's not that to say that nothing good is happening there. But that, like, a lot of it is actually, especially things like child protective services, is really about disconnecting people from each other, right? It's about disconnecting, in particular, indigenous, black, poor children from their parents to eradicate society that is not U.S. Western capitalist, indigenous, as opposed to the settler, right? So that's really the ultimate motive, certainly, of social services, as if you examine it very closely in places like Hawaii, in places like the so-called United States, Canada, etc. It's not about actually finally helping the people, and on another level, it's not really about helping people, necessarily get what they need. Now, people do get help, but that's not really the final goal. The goal is to give people, like, just enough, right, through, here's a little bit of this program or that. Here's a little bit of money for your energy. Here's a little bit of money for your food. But then also they lock you into that system. They lock you into the United States capitalist system, and they also keep you on enough of a drip, so that you can. It is important for Snap, and it is important for these programs to exist under the current nightmarish capitalist United States system, because people can't afford these things without that. But, like, they also lock you into the United States in a certain sense, because then now they keep you on a drip feed, and it stops you. It does kind of slowly prevent you from escaping that structure, and it gives just enough. It doesn't really give anyone enough to finally escape the slow motion destruction of their communities, of their own sovereign economies. It's really about, it's about keeping you on an IV drip of like just enough to get by, show up for work, survive, exist as a like money laundering scheme for international mega banks like JP Morgan. Every dollar that comes to the SNAP program, just as one example, they take 1% of that. Every dollar that goes out, even for the housing programs, comes straight through Wall Street banks to basically maintain, is about maintaining some semblance of civilization. But while it doesn't actually give enough to the people, right? They're just, even whatever the electronic benefits transfer that you get, the amount that you get for your housing, the amount that you get for your education, the subsidies and all this stuff, it's not even close to enough, right? And actually, if you got rid of the entire capitalist structure and you just did what Cuba and Hawaii before U.S. occupation did, then everybody would be a lot better off, right? But it's kind of like, it's just enough of a band-aid. It's just enough and it's as little of a band-aid, but it's just enough of a band-aid to make it seem like the Western liberal capitalist, even the social democratic, which is often not even enough, system, but certainly the United States system, certainly the British system, right? It's just enough of a band-aid to make it seem like this system is salvageable. Like if we just put a little bit more money here, if we just funded the schools a little more, just give them a little more money, right? If you just vote for this Democrat or Republican or whatever, we're going to get a little more money. There'll be a little more homeless shelter. Oh, look, we're going to build 1,000 homes. Jeff Bezos is going to build us 50 homes. Look at that charity that he donated, right? It's actually all of that, the charity, nonprofits, NGOs, the Bernies that are going to like pretend like they're going to do something, but they're just kind of there as a shell game. That's very important to keeping everybody like, oh, this is really bad. I'm like working 2 jobs to survive and I'm like starving right now, and I'm like duct taping over my deep cuts that probably need like hospitals, stitches, and but I can't afford that. Oh, this really sucks. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this city. I don't like this inequality. I don't like this system. I'm scared to say the word capitalism because, I could get in trouble and people think that I'm a socialist and that's evil. Oh, I don't really like it. But it's like, but look, they give you just enough hope, or at least false hope, to think that if you vote this, if you do this, if you just keep buying into that system, it could get better, or it might get a little bit better, and certainly if I try to do anything other than keep feeding into the system, if I do anything other than that, I'm going to get way worse off. So it has to be, it can't like allow people to drop too far, because if you drop too far off, then they have to roll out other things. We'll get to that. We should get to that later. I'm kind of jumping too far ahead, but long story short is that having lived in like a extremely unequal a city, and I think most like cities generally have this problem, going all the way back to places like Rome, and even non-Western cities will encounter this problem, where when you have like metropoles, where you have vast quantities of centralization and wealth flowing in, it's not a guarantee that it will turn into an incredibly unjust and horrific place. But there will be cities do attract vast, cities attract vast quantities of. Sorry, I find a good picture of this. Why am I in the Neofeud trailer? I don't know. Trying to find where's my nighttime city. There. So cities do attract vast quantities of capital flowing into them, right? They attract vast quantities of centralization. So the revenue from the revenue from the agricultural, the mining, the factories, the whatever your rest of your country is producing flow right from the rural areas and industrial areas, and then if you have an empire, then the colonies thousands of miles away, which is just like the next level of mass wealth accumulation and mass power accumulation. The cities are the places where all that flows into, right? And then decisions are made in the cities. Well, I mean, at least historically, this is how it has worked. And then what that doesn't necessarily mean that the place that city and that country that the city is in is going to be unjust and terrible and abusive and full of ghettos and full of impoverished neo-feudal serfs, right? Like as Neofeud deals with like these people, it doesn't guarantee that, and teachers by extension, like in Abbot Elementary, but like it does. People who seek wealth, people who seek power, people who seek more for themselves, gravitate, right? Like it's like cities are like black hole. They're like greater attractors of people with I was gonna say Macbethian aspiration, but just any kind of aspiration. Anybody who wants to come in to the center of wealth and power and try to increase it, that the city is where people go, right? And so it's the center, it's the fulcrum, right? Like in Neofeud, it's the fulcrum palace lies above the stratoplex, is the floating crystalline shimmering I was envisioning Rome crossed with Versailles, Rome circa 50 BC crossed with Versailles circa 1750, crossed with New York City circa 1985, crossed with there's nothing, the West is not going to have anything soon, so it's crossed with some future city circa 2100, right? And now it's kind of, but it represents all cities forever, really, since the sentient hominid descendant species have been accumulating wealth accumulating wealth and power and knowledge and etc. into centers. And so people who arrive, so again, people come, they're coming for reasons of trying to, these are natural inclinations. I would like to increase my potential. I would like to increase the possibility of having more, better housing, a career, doing something great, doing something glorious, making scientific advancements. These happen also a lot of times in cities or funded and operated through cities. I would like to come to a great center of knowledge. I would like to be an captain of industry. I would like to build a great company. I would like to, whatever the things. I would like to become famous, right? I would like to become a political, man or woman or non-binary person of history, mostly usually man of history, for being real. You go to DC for that, right? You go to Wall Street for if you really want the wealth. You go to Los Angeles nowadays if you really want the fame. Although that's changing, but which is, we should get to that later. But my point is that so cities have, then you have there's a tension because you're always going to have, classes of, there will be people who are stepping over other people, like literally homeless people in the street, to get to their $200,000 corporate lawyer job or their Starbucks marketing VP job or whatever they're doing. And then there will be people, and those people, they don't really want to look down at the people they're stepping over. I mean, or also just the poor people, the maids and the Starbucks baristas and the janitors that are, because somebody has to do all that work. People have to do all the work, right? If you don't have janitors and the people making the coffee that the people are drinking on their way to their 100th floor meeting, right? The city doesn't function, right? I mean, we don't have artificial intelligence and sentient machines, or I should say non-sentient machines powered by Chat GPT and Asimo bots that are capable of doing all that work, right? Yet, right? Now you're getting closer to that, but it's still, you require multiple. You require the way that cities have classically functioned. There have always been class/castes of people in the cities, and one of the things that they're doing is education as well, right? I mean, the different castes, right, include and that's a major part of Neofeud. At the very, near the bottom you have the the people that are moving the U-Hauls, full of people that are moving the trucks that are full of the chips and the cookies and the pens and the paper that goes into the office, right? Or all the people that are like just bringing into and out of the city, or bringing the world's resources into the city, right? Like, and the country's resources, right? All the agriculture and the grain and the paper and the pens, all the stuff you need into the city. Those are the truck drivers. Those are the there's a whole article I recently did. There's a 3-hour stream about this, just the truck driving collapse and the failure of AI to replace the now ostensibly obsolete truck drivers that are retiring in droves and not being replaced and all being underpaid and etc. But so if that system falls apart, then you're in big trouble, right? The rail system, the truck system. This is why Rome had roads, right? Famously, Piccadilly Circus, and Britain is scarred with it is decorated with and or scarred with the Roman roads that it built when it produced the metropole that is now calling itself London, right? Thousands of years ago. And so the transportation, the resource transporters are a very important job for cities. Without those, you don't have cities. The janitorial, the cleaning, the loading and unloading, the physical structure maintenance, right? The window wipers and the construction workers that build and maintain the cities, the people who put the toilets in, people who unclog the toilets, people who deal with the pest infestations, the people who keep the girders up, keep the glass going out. Those people are another layer of people fundamental to the city. So people often make a little bit more, and that actually comes up in Abbot Elementary, but they're slightly above the janitor bottom level and the maid and the disproportionately Hispanic or colonized global South people by the Spaniards. They often get filtered into the Anglo-Saxon world nowadays. The Filipino maids and in-house care workers that are paid, they're down there. They are necessary as well. You need the maids. You need cities as they function require the servant classes to cook, to clean, to care for the sick, to do the laundry, all that stuff, right? And so those people are filtered in. The Chinese, Asians have been a lot of the cooking for these cities, particularly in places like North America, and in certain like Los Angeles, New York. It's like we're gonna get Chinese, right? So the city requires like all these different classes and castes of people to function. Any of which, if the metropole will fall apart. The urban so-called utopia becomes dystopia if that falls apart, and it is falling apart. And so like the way that Neofeud goes from the bottom, right, where these people live, up into the top where you have the levitating golf courses. It's just Neofeud is a surrealized it's a surreal science fictional, Douglas Adamsian sort of taking the knobs to 11 version of what cities are, where I'm from. I'm actually from the most unequal and the most hyper American, the most city in the United States, actually statistically, economically, socially, the most unequal, the most impoverished district, and the highest cost of living by magnitudes is Honolulu. In fact, people don't really know that, but I like to bring it up as often as possible. But anyway, but Neofeud is it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be Honolulu. It could be somewhere else. There is the palaces. There are that's something else. There's then there's the street. There's the sentience. Like in Neofeud, instead of the Department of Human Services, right? There's the Department of Sentient Services. You have the payday loans place. This is the kind of places I worked in. Community clinic and health center. And then you have your where's the middle place? Somewhere here I have it. There. So then you have the middle. Well, they usually don't have guns shooting at. They don't have armed Agent Smith like agents and robot arm toting Bruce Willis and John Connor with a Mega Buster and a Gold Deagle. shooting at attack copters. But there's the management, the middle and then the upper management level of the city, and that they're the ones who they're getting their coffee in the city. The highest level of the city does not exist usually within the city. They're wherever they want to be. They're in Davos, they're in Switzerland, they're golfing in Mar-a-Lago, all parties, or they're golfing, at the Clintons' favorite place. They're in Martha's Vineyard. They're on Larry Ellison's island. They're on Lanai whenever they feel like it. But the people who are at the third highest levels, right? The VP of marketing, the mayor, the mayor's assistants, all that apparatus, the executives, some of the executives, the mid-level executives, the office workers, who do the stock traders, the people who are executing the people who are kind of directing the functions of the capitalism. Let's just call it the people who are executing the functions of the city, whatever they are. They're not always necessarily hyper-capitalist, but they have a tendency towards hierarchical integration. They have a tendency towards inequalities and pyramidization, in the sense of small number of people at the top with more, and then a larger masses of people beneath with less but doing more of the work. So the city, it does require those people at the mid to top level who then are aspiring to finally reach the pinnacle, right? In Neofeud, the very top, right, is in the palace. Well, before it's getting blown up, but the golden levitating palace with multi-quadrillion dollars worth of gold mined from lassoed Kuiper Belt comets. That's literally what this palace is made out of, the Fulcrum Palace. And it's the site of the 12 richest immortal people in the solar system, which they have so far. In Neofeud 2, it's not just a solar system anymore, but it's the point is that the gold and the every layer. So at the very top, the golden palace of the people who can reside anywhere. So those are the Gates and the Clinton Bushes, the Gates Waltons, and the Koch Jobs. That's literally the names in the game. Because I was like, why are we beating around the bush? Let's just call the spade, right? And that's why I couldn't get Neofeud published by any American or any Western publisher. I've actually been asked by non-Western entities to do things, but I haven't done that yet because Anyways, but Neofeud is a game that it's at every level, people are aspiring to move upwards, right? So the people in the Stratoplex, the people making $500,000 to $1 million a year who can afford to live in New York City, right? Which is not that many people. Those people are dreaming of making $1 billion or $50 billion a year, right? Like a lot of people. The people that are beneath that, right? The people that are at the next level down. The people that are, so the people that are, working, maybe they're a manager in a Walmart or a, they fix computers, or they manage the computer fixing center in the city. Neofeud focuses a lot on the nonprofit and the government assistance sector, but of course you have the nonprofits, you have the corporate for-profit sector, and you have the public sector. It doesn't really matter. They're all the same ultimately. This is a very important thing. People think there's some kind of differentiation between these. Ultimately, in the kind of cities that the West and the world has at this moment, it's kind of immaterial. This is one of the. But anyways, that is a point that I try to make in Neofeud as well, which is that the differentiation between the corporation, a state, the NGO, and the nonprofit. The nonprofit is actually the most virulent of them all. You notice when billionaires become billionaires, right? When the modern neo-feudal oligarchs ascend to the highest tiers of power, they all become. It's actually a joke in a movie. I forget, it was a joke. It was a quote somewhere that when you're a millionaire, you're an entrepreneur. When you become a billionaire, you become a philanthropist, right? Because the philanthrocapitalism is one of the most virulent, because its point is it's like the Democratic Party version of capitalism, right? The corporate mega corporation capital. It's actually that's the Republican mask off version. It's very incompetent, right? Somebody's commenting about DeSantis is actually more dangerous than Trump because DeSantis actually went to Harvard, actually kind of knows what he's doing. Trump is just like smashing everything with a sledgehammer, right? And so anyway, I'm gonna come back to the point that I was on before I dove off of that tangent. So like the nonprofit, I've worked for all the sectors, right? I've worked for multiple billionaires. They're actually making a movie about one of the ultra rich people that I have worked for. His name is Hank Rogers. He's the owner of Tetris. Lives in Hawaii. He loves showing up in a Metallica t-shirt and loves D&D and video games. And he did get Tetris. They're literally making, you can look it up. They're making a movie about him. He's being played by the guy from the Kingsman. A lot of Neofeud actually was based on my experiences working for people like this guy. Tetris is an upcoming biographical by John S. Bard and Noah Pink, Taron Egerton and Tommy Jones. And so he went to the Soviet Union where he risked everything traveling to the Soviet Union, where he joins forces with inventor Alexei Pajitnov to bring the game to the masses. It's going to be interesting. I think I should not say anything more than that because, and not just because I used to work for that guy. But anyways, he's one of the richest people in Hawaii. I take that back. He is. He is. There are richer people than him. Of course, there's Larry Ellison that owns massive quantities. He also owns American TikTok. So if your TikTok suddenly became more fat phobic, pro-capitalist, poverty shaming, and wealth worshipping, you can blame Larry, who also lives in Hawaii. I tell you, man, Hawaii is the most American place, unfortunately. Hawaii is the most ultra capitalist place under U.S. occupation. It's just very sad. Anyways, though, so back to Abbot Elementary, though. I'm kind of going off in a lot of directions. Actually, but let me just finish that one point I was making. So like the people who are working so the people who are working making $70,000-$100,000 a year, right, as a middle manager at a Walmart in Toronto or Seattle, or as a low level just a lawyer or a executive or a doctor or a or a low level executive or a technician, right? Maybe they're comfortable where they are, right? Maybe not, right? They're like, I wish I had a little more money. I want to ascend to the next level. I want to get to the million, 500,000 million a year. And the people at the million a year trying to get to the billion a year. And the people that are like doing the vast quantity of the grunts of the most necessary work that is actually needed, at the bottom rung, you paradoxically, or I guess I call it in a poetically unjust sense, the people at the very bottom of the totem pole are doing being paid the worst, are doing the most important work, without which the entire city falls apart, right? Without which the Roman metropole or the British Windsor Palace run London, or the Parisian Versailles, or with all of its 76 layer cakes and its overly florid arrangements and its manicured but unnecessary and kind of wasteful lawn with its shrub art, all of that falls apart without the bottom level of the bottom level, the people who are paid the least, who have the least respect, the cooking and the cleaning and the janitorial and the physical labor that keeps the structures and everything running. And so that the people that are working in the McDonald's, people that are like loading and unloading delivery trucks, the people that are like keeping the sewer and the water systems functioning, the people that are keeping the electricity running, the people that are keeping the lights on, people that are keeping the roads paved and potholes filled, people that are keeping the buildings from having damage and falling apart, the people that are upkeeping the buildings or not upkeeping the buildings, as a lot of buildings are as they decay in neo-feudal self-annihilatory phases of capitalism, and so the each all those people at the bottom are, and in this in a when the systems of a city are deeply malicious, or are it's complex to say, like, this city is a capitalist city, or this city is a not capitalist city, or this city is a fascist, or this city is that's not, like, there's a lot of factors that come into play about what a city is. Like a city like Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, where Abbot Elementary takes place, is a place that has its own history, and that's also a thing that comes up in the show. That's like, I do like that part about the show. Like, this city is not just like, oh, there was a beautiful, brotherly love when the working class, blue collar union workers, just, wanted their wages to go up, and then the police showed up and everyone hugged each other and they said, oh, it's so great that we're raising all of your wages now. Yay, Philadelphia is better and everyone is happy, right? And because one of the teachers, like, he's one of the Princess, he's like the Princess Sybil of the teachers. Princess Sybil is this multi-trillionaire celebutant slash CEO of multi-planetary rocket companies slash mega celeb, celebutant. She get honorarily wins the Transplanetary Academy Awards, and so she is like somebody from incredible wealth and privilege, and then she shows up in the ghetto. She shows up in the poorest parts of the city, Coastlandia in Neofeud, right? And then there's a character in Abbot Elementary that's kind of like that. He kind of shows up. Let's go back into Abbot, right? Abbot Elementary actors. So Abbot has Chris Perfetti, Jacob Hill, right? Jacob is, he's a Jewish kid, but he's also white, by extension. But he's also, it's kind of like you people, and like there's and then that's a common thing where you have people that are of Jewish heritage, and then they're near in proximity culturally and sometimes geographically to people of African heritage, and so he is, he's like he's well-to-do though, but he's disproportionately, if you're Jewish, you're disproportionately more well-to-do economically, and so he's like, but then he also like feels like he has to do something to help that's a good thing to want to do something to help other people. It's not a bad thing, right? And he's like, I'm gonna come to Abbot Elementary and help these poor disproportionately black children, because it is vastly disproportionately black, that's how it is. In the poor areas of the cities, you have the under racialized capitalism and under racist systems generally, you're going to have people, and I would in a lot of these certainly Western cities, you have, even in Rome, even in Greece, right? Athens was staffed by Afro-Asiatic people disproportionately. I mean, and by staffed I mean the slaves, as just like Thomas Jefferson, when he established the United States, was run. The slave class was the bottom of that totem pole, and so United States in Philadelphia has disproportionately impoverished black people in the poorest areas and in the most underfunded schools, by extension, of their city. And so Jacob arrives and he's like, I'm gonna help this school, I'm gonna teach, I'm gonna educate all of these children, and I'm gonna do something good. I'm gonna empower the underclasses, and I'm gonna have a moving experience. It's like Freedom Riders. It's like all these things, and it's he's the very Freedom Riders. He's the very he's like the what is it? I didn't want to say something pejorative, but the bleeding heart liberal teacher shows up in the city and saves all of the poor black and brown kids in the school with some kind of touching, moving. We're all gonna get teary-eyed at the end when the kids go from bad to good, and they were all wearing their colors and not paying attention in class and throwing paper airplanes and doing drug deals. And now, after the teacher has connected, the white middle to upper class teacher has connected with their black and brown students, now the school is, and all the kids are like reading, and they're winning spelling bees, and they're like entering mathematics tournaments, and they're doing, robotics engineering. They're doing robotics engineering competitions and winning national tournaments. Oh my God, look what that middle class white teacher has done for the school. And it's like, that's really heartwarming, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I worked in these schools. There have been like white and disproportionately white Jewish teachers. I'm not even joking with you. White Jewish teachers from middle to upper middle class backgrounds working. They're like their characters like Jonah Hill's character in You People, and like Jacob Hill in Abbott Elementary, right? That are like there. And I'm thinking of one of the places I worked at, which was a education, and we're doing a lot of tutoring, but it was like helping kids who are falling behind get the education they need. A lot of them are foster children. So I've been proximal to the social work system as well, helping children in foster care. That's the term that was the PC term at the time. Helping children in foster care achieve their educational potential, blah 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 blah, all that kind of stuff. It's all about the heartwarmingness with this stuff, And I'm not saying it's not heartwarming, but then there's also a reality to this stuff, and like, it's like wanting to do a good thing, right? And that, again, as I said, the Western liberal capitalist system runs on the what is this, like the natural human tendency towards care and love and altruism and wanting to do a good thing, the right thing, the desire to be moral, virtuous, ethical, to do something important, right? That, which is a good thing. So I don't want to like say the wrong. I don't want to kind of like make people feel bad because they are doing mutual aid or volunteering at a homeless shelter or taking a lower salary to teach at a impoverished district school. It's not. That is like a good normal human response, right? You would pass. You would, speaking of cyberpunk, because I'm supposed to be some kind of cyberpunk game maker, but now I'm doing all these like random mainstream American TV and movie reviews. Don't ask me why that happened. But you would pass the Turing test, you would pass the Voight-Kampff test if you have empathy. It's literally an empathy test, right? You have empathy for your fellow people, and especially those that most need it. So, but at the same time, even though you want to help, right? The structures and the systems of cities, right? Generally, and certainly those under places like what Honolulu is and what New York City is, and the economic and social and ideological structures of the city of London, you might want to help, right? By teaching in the disproportionately Syrian and Iraqi immigrant regions of the UK, and just helping the poor and donating to this charity or working at that charity, or in the New York City Ithaca area. I'm thinking of specific people that we know in the Ithaca area of New York City, working for a mixed income community food garden that is disproportionately staffed by multi-millionaire white ladies, but then has like a few token black people show up so that they can take pictures with them. I know this process. I worked at these kind of entities. So like, the entities, the nonprofits, the government, social assistance centers, the public schools themselves, the education, the departments of education, the entire systems and structures of the Western society, certainly, and the capitalist societies and cities, certainly. Those take the gasoline of the capitalist engine is the altruism of the young and not yet shattered, just normal moral people. That's actually what fuels it, right? Because then when people see that, oh, look at that thing. Because people can they see the homeless people. They read the articles about the climate falling apart. They can see the starvation, malnourishment happening in their own homes. People are like literally eating like raccoons and stuff. They might watch TV shows about how everybody isn't living in alternate reality timelines where we're still living in 1980s Stranger Things. They're going to have entire videos specifically about, temporal dislocation into the past as your empire falls apart. This was Greece, this was Rome, this was Britain, this was France. Living in a digital Versailles of simulacra of what wasn't even a real 1980s, where everything, where the cars are fast, or the 1950s if you're a Republican, 1980s if you're a liberal, 1950s if you're a Republican. If you're a computer nerd, it's synthwave, it's retrowave, but it's all about living in an alternate. In the 90s, if you like the mall, it's about living in an alternate past when the reality is everything is fucking falling apart, and there's 70 million people malnourished in 2020, and teachers are quitting in droves because they have to work 16 hours a day, multiple jobs, just to afford rent and food, right? So the normal human empathy of the young, and as I said, not yet disillusioned, feeds in. The teacher burnout rate is like 25-50% or more at most schools now. We don't even realize this. And without teachers, as I brought up on a previous stream, without teachers, all the other classes all the other vital necessary castes/classes of people that live in this area, right? All the people that serve the brunches, the people that cook and clean and produce all of the nuts and the bolts, and that fix the plumbing, keep the supply chains running and the trucks moving to get the caviar into the upper echelons, right? The people that are at the very, this is about the social work system, taking children to destroy cultures that are antithetical to capitalist, exploitative hierarchical structures, right? Anyways, so, but in order to maintain the everything else, right? In order to stop change from happening, it requires all of the people to have hope to cling to within the system, right? Bernie Sanders is actually very important to the United States because Obama was important because Obama said there was hope and there was change. If you vote for me, we're going to have Si se puede, Si se puede was a black man telling the Hispanic most vital laborers. They do the agricultural work. They do disproportionately the cooking and the cleaning in restaurants, in houses, like I said. So it was about getting all those people to not flee the United States, to not give up on the United States, but to stick it out a little longer, go back to work, peasants, Versailles hedge trimmers, underpaid, Louis XIV cake artists. Just go back to work another day, and in order to, and when all of the working classes, black, brown, poor, white, all of them that do all that most important work, they need the teachers. The teaching is not about teaching, number one. That's a very important point we can now get to. Teaching in cities is not about education. Teaching in capitalist cities, certainly, capitalist countries, it's not about education. Teaching is about producing, teaching is about babysitting. And any teacher that knows, they know this is what it's really about. Any teacher that has ever taught, like my parents are two of them, it's about babysitting. It's about occupying the young. I mean, it's about other things than that, but that's the primary function, right? And the Force 500, sometimes they accidentally say it out loud. Teaching is about having somewhere for parents to put the children while they go to their cooking, their cleaning, their industrial, their working class job that keeps the rest of the city functioning. Which all the upper crust who don't do anything useful, as I said, when you go from the lowest paid to the highest paid jobs, you go from the most vital, instrumental, essential services. They said COVID-19 was very important. It's terrible, but it drew that out, right? Essential services. Who was not essential? Everyone who was not an essential service in COVID-19, those are all the superfluous classes. Who were they? Everyone making $100,000 or more. Everyone who could afford to live in a city at some kind of barely dignified level. is the most non-essential. So when you go from the bottom of the pay scale to the top, you go through an increasingly less necessary people in the society in terms of the work that they do. And so, certainly under a capitalist Western system. So the cities need those teachers to keep the children preoccupied so the parents can go to work. And otherwise it becomes very difficult. COVID-19 kind of revealed that, oh my gosh, this is difficult for me to go work 8 hours a day while I have the children coming to work. Was this becoming the norm? And if you're an essential worker, when you were an essential worker, this is actually part of the reason why workforces were cut in half. The number one reason for quitting a job in the United States today and in the last couple of years is, it still was, what was the number one reason? God, I forgot what it was. I know, but the number one reason was, retirement. That's what it is. Yeah, retirement. The number one reason is retirement, and the number two reason right after retirement for leaving a job is because the employee has to take care of a child, someone else's child, elderly relative. So care work, right? Child care and elder care, and this is disabled care, etc. That is like the number one after retirement, that's just a thing that happens. I would argue. I mean, who's retiring nowadays, really, for real though, right? So it's if you cut out the people who have retired but they're still going back to work, it's actually more like number one reason is because of people having to care for children, right? And so when COVID-19 happened and schools had to take they were vastly closed down, that hugely altered the workforce capacity, right? And so the teachers serve that function. Number one. Obviously they do some amount of education, but in a city like Hawaii, just a city like Honolulu, Hawaii has the highest dropout rate. The cities in Hawaii, the schools in the island of Oahu certainly have the highest dropout rates in the so-called United States. And Hawaii is, it's an occupied country, and part of that is 50%. Like some of the schools that I worked at the most impoverished schools in Hawaii. I was not necessarily Jacob, but I was doing Jacob-like things, right? I was a poor Native Hawaiian person from Hawaii, the city of Honolulu, the most unequal city in all of the United States, the highest police mass incarceration rate, the highest police murder rate, the highest school to prison pipeline rate is in where I'm from. Literally, the district of Kalihi Valley is like the worst, 70% poverty rate, and absolute extreme poverty is very high there. All Hawaiian, Filipino, Asian diaspora, Pacific Islander. So lots of Filipinos. So this is the number one slave force for the United States. So the people who are working right in that region, right, with me, the kids who are there and the people that I'm working with, right, they need the teachers, right? The kids. The kids, we feel bad for the kids. I felt bad for the kids when I was working. I had I could tell you all the horror stories, and I used to do streams where I just talk about all the horror stories that inspired Neofeud. Just watching the kids suffer, watching 30% of the children that I work with were homeless, kids, were huge numbers of them were getting into, gang behavior, just not good behavior, like selling drugs, selling meth at age 12 and stuff like that. It's not good things to be getting into. Kids were routinely getting killed. Like I remember at one point there were murders kids killing other kids at one point, every week or so. At this one point when I was working in the Mayor housing area, which is in it's basically it's right in the poorest parts of Honolulu, right? And it was like kids that I work with, like they're no longer alive because of this stuff and because of police violence as well. And because they went to prison for the rest of their life as well. And so as a teacher, and as a I was working in a teaching capacity, but also in the social services humanitarian capacity, right? Like the nonprofit work. It's kind of both. I've worked in direct teaching, teaching, and then also doing, surrogate parenting of a classroom of 30 kids who don't even, some of them barely speak English. A lot of them don't have any parents at all. They literally don't know who their parents are. They live in a house with two adults that are not related to them necessarily. And then they sleep like 20 to a room, and there's like ants crawling in their ears and stuff. Their houses are falling apart. And this is the part that they don't show you this, but cities are, this is who actually, the parents of those people are who staff the hotels, who work the most grueling jobs, and their children suffer horribly. And the schools that those children go to, right, are intentionally underfunded. I mean, Wendell and Wild has a lot of this going on, right? Which is like, they say like, well, the people who are running that school in Wendell and Wild they have a school to prison pipeline. Like, there's a prison, and we're just trying to get as many kids as possible to go be a slave when they grow up. This purpose of the school, right? Because again, the West is a colonial slave plantation society. It was Hellenic Greek peoples with, as I said, Afro-Asiatic slaves, and then it was Romans with a variety of kinds of slaves and different types of oppressed workers, and then it was a feudal serfs for a long, for several centuries, and then it was back to international Afro-Asiatic slavery, right? You got a lot of black underclass workers. You had black chattel slavery in the United States. You had black slavery in Brazil, right? You have global South, imperial global slavery, and Hawaii has the Asian and Pacific Islander is the Native Hawaiian is the number one most per capita incarcerated people, and they become good Tyson chicken nugget separators. Hawaiians are doing a lot of they can package Coca-Cola in your prison. The Native Hawaiians and black people disproportionately are making vegan and non-vegan Whole Foods cheese, and that slave labor is the number one most important thing. And then also the oppressed classes that don't go to prison, you can be cooking and cleaning and delivering and chopping food and working in the restaurant, right? And all of those bottom classes of people don't need not that they don't need an education. The United States and the capitalist system, the racist capitalist systems of the West, they have no interest in educating any of those people. You just need just enough to be able to show up, right? Put clothes into a laundromat, take an order. In fact, you don't even need to speak. All you got to do is say hello. In Hawaii, you can say aloha and mahalo. Thank you for coming, right? And then be able to, move, fill a Mai Tai glass, right? Do the grueling washing and the cooking and bussing tables, right? They don't want you to have an education, right? The slaves never had educations, right? The Greek slaves never had educations. That was for white men like Aristotle and Plato and Socrates, right? The Romans didn't care to educate the people that were enslaved. The Romans did the same thing, right? The Romans, they said the soldiers didn't really need an education either. They needed good imperial brainwashing, so they go die for rich oligarchs in Rome, right? Drinking all the wine, eating all the fine cheese, having the ice cream. The British never educated anyone. The French never educated anyone except for their most highest aristocracies. And the United States pretends to have an education system, but it doesn't have an education system. It has a servant / temporarily embarrassed millionaire, also known as workers under capitalism, and even more disproportionately, stealth slaves called the prison system, and $3 an hour, or I'm going to call ICE, illegal immigrant, etc. system under the racialized tiers of capitalism. And then the schools are there to pretend. The real function of schools is to provide babysitting for all the people who need to continue to do the labor that is actually necessary. And schools provide the political cover in a world that has successful non-capitalist societies like Cuba. Schools provide the heartwarming propaganda. Schools are the conditioning system. People seeing schools and seeing shows about teachers, right? Like Freedom Rider. People hearing and looking at their kids going, oh, look at this great thing my children are learning, right? People look at, especially inner city schools where the most important laborers are. Schools are about producing propaganda to suggest that there is any kind of moral, spiritual vitality moral uh, moral um, moral high ground of the West and its capitalist system. That's the point of schools, and also their conditioning systems, so that you learn, to not question the system, that communism is evil, whitewashes, the settler colonial genocidal history of the most evil countries in the world, like the United States, and that's another function. But babysitting, number one, number two, suggests that there's some kind of hope in the United States in the capitalist system. Number three, brainwash your population and make them as stupid and controllable as possible. That's the function of schools. So this whole idea that and so teachers that are showing up to help children, when they realize that you can't, like I did, right? The school system relies on a constant influx of 18 to 26-year-olds, right? Who want to do good, show up in a school, babysit for 6 months to 3 years, burn out, right? Burn out, and then go do something else and make money under capitalism, or just die. I don't know, or just or go back and Deliveroo or drive Uber, or move the supply trucks, right? Or break your back, moving boxes of Baby Yoda T-shirts and cat ear, headbands and Walmart products in an Amazon fulfillment factory, or whatever the fuck you're gonna do. But the Western capitalism requires a constant influx of millions of bright-eyed, I want to do good young people flowing into them babysitting facilities for exploited serfs and slaves that are the workers, and then burning out and then coming out. And they want it constantly to be, they want people coming in, burning out, and leaving, right? This is actually very important. So the demographic flows outside into the United States is important. The demographic flows into the schools and then out, right? Because if you stick around too long, right? Well, if you stick around too long, people actually get smart. And if there's enough people that were really smart and they really stuck it out and they figured out what exactly is happening, which is that school is just it is slave babysitting care. That's what it is. And it's a diseducation facility to make pro-capitalist, pro-genocidal idiots, right? That's what school is really for. And then you got to ban books if the teachers get too smart and they go, well, we have to like do something about this entire school, right? And in Abbot Elementary, there are 2 teachers who have been there for 20 years. Everyone else is coming in and leaving. And it's like at the beginning of the show, right? At the beginning of the show, there's a joke. Oh, hey, hey, I'm like one of the, of the 20 teachers that came in, I'm the only one. There was 2 other teachers and me that are still here, and the other 2, like one of them just got fired today, and the other one accidentally or the other one kicked the student and is now being prosecuted and is no longer with us. So there, out of 20 teachers, there is 1 teacher. 20 teachers from the year before, 1 teacher is still around. That's normal. Before I stopped teaching in the diseducation facilities, and the Western capitalism has any kind of the Western capitalism airbrushing facility called American Schools and nonprofit and any of that system that does some token good, but does in the long term doesn't really help. Teachers I was training teachers, I was a teacher trainer because I was a senior teacher in this one. It was mostly science, technology, engineering, and math program, and it was for inner city, at risk, right? Underhoused, underserved that was the PC term at the time. So that which is you don't say foster kids, you say children in foster care. You don't say delinquent kids. You don't say bad kids. You say underserved kids, which is and that's because you don't want to stick the label on them that they're bad, and that's its whole thing, because it's not good for anyone, because it kind of suggests that that's something internal to them, and that's fine. But on the underserved, at-risk children, right, disproportionately non-white, obviously, in the ghetto, that the most poor part of the entire United States that I worked in, those children, the teachers, right, were coming in, every two at the end at the right before I left, every 3 to 6 months there would be a new teacher. The teacher would come in, I would train them. Right after they started working, about a month later, they burn out and they leave. That's how fast the turnover was. 3 to 6 months. So I'm not even joking. So the rate at which young people are coming in is getting faster and faster and faster. I mean, as the inequality, as the West is dying, as capitalism is dying faster and faster, it used to be like about a year. I could almost chart you a graph of it. When I first started, it was about 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. The average teacher would burn out and quit. You know, and this was about 2009 to 2017 approximately. I was working at this, this is one of the places that I worked at. For about a decade, I worked in impoverished schools with impoverished children, right? That's, if you go to the Neofeud page, you're going to find all of this information, right? On itch. It's about, the art, stories, and gameplay is a reflection of my experiences as a STEM teacher for the underserved youth of Honolulu, teaching robotics programming and sustainability in a difficult, stressful, Kafka-esque endeavor, being in one of the most richest, beautiful places in Earth, yet dealing with families, working parents living out of vans, sleeping on the street, and trying to keep kids out of gangs, off of drugs, on path towards better opportunities. And so, like, the experience, and it's not like I regret teaching those kids, It's not like I don't think that anyone in the schools are bad people. Like, they're actually very good people because they like want to do something, and you're gonna take a pay cut. You could make a lot more money. You can make a lot more money. I should say nobody's making enough money nowadays, but you can make more money in other. Teaching as a profession is one of the lowest paid for your amount of education you need to the amount of money that you're paid proportionally. It's one of the worst return on investment jobs. So the teachers are trying to do good, but at the same time, like I said, they're coming in, they're burning out, and every year it was getting faster and faster and faster and faster. The burnout rate was like 2 to 3 months. It's like, what is even the point of what we're doing here? What is happening here? And the not only that, the teachers, even the managers were flipping the managers were like, the first one stuck around for 2-3 years, and then it was 2 years, and then it was 1 year, then it was 6 months. Right? And all of this was funded by, there was a $60 million there's like a huge national STEM grant pioneered by the Obama administration. So again, he's complicit in this entire. Obama was one of the worst presidents ever. He's actually, I argue, Obama was the worst emperor of all the empires that ever existed, because he prolonged the American empire for the longest amount of time of any U.S. president. The mask off U.S. presidents, they're the most incompetent imperialists. I quote Ben Rhodes under the Obama administration, who criticizing the Trump-Rubio doctrine of incompetent imperialism, which was a wind in the sails of the Latin American left. Obama was the worst of all, because he increased the faith in the unsalvageable U.S. empire and capitalism itself by about 10 years, its life expectancy. Trump destroyed it by about 7 years, and you can measure that in the time it would take for China to surpass the United States. Trump actually, the DoD, the Department of Defense, U.S. primacy maintainers projections was 2035, China would surpass the United States. After Trump, it was 2027, 2028, 2027. It's stuck around there under Biden. So Biden is slightly more competent than Trump, maybe. At maintaining empire, and by extension imperial metropoles like Philadelphia, like New York, like Honolulu, like Los Angeles, right? We're what? We're the power. What is an empire, right? It's really like the concept of the idea of Westphalian countries is kind of like bogus, really. It's there are power centers where all of the wealth flows, and then there's everywhere else. Nobody cares about everywhere else. The U.S. doesn't care. The U.S. doesn't care about anywhere in Arkansas or Mississippi or Missouri. All that is that's just the liberals. They do a really good job. They go like, what are these red flyover states that are full with degenerate, like Hillary Clinton? These are all degenerates in most of the United States. And the reality is, there's a lot of racist garbage all over the United States. Yeah? But whatever they are, it doesn't matter. Empires don't care about anything but the metropole. And they don't care about the metropole. They just care about maintaining, the people at the top care about maintaining all of the rest of the structures, you know, to keep the palaces going. They don't care. The idea that there is a country called the United States is itself a figment of the imaginations of the 330 million people that have had Western diseducation, also known as elementary and high school schooling, in their head. The idea that there is a country, there's no country there really. At the end of the day, there is a tower that eats everything else, and the people at the top of the tower get the most, and everyone else gets fucked. And the people outside of the country is just, you know, they are tiers upon tiers upon tiers, and the people that are outside of the most powerful empire get the most screwed, and those on the other side, and sometimes you have rivals, but for the last 500 years, there are different, like in this picture, there's the Clinton Bush run Stratoplex. There's the Koch Jobs literal levitating 7-mile wide multi-trillion cubic square foot military industrial complex floating above the earth. And then there's the Gates Walton conglomerate on the right. So, you know, it's kind of like there's Britain, there's London. There isn't a Britain and a France really. There's a London and there's a Paris. And then there's tens of millions of brainwashed cogs called British subjects and French citizens. You know what I'm saying? There isn't an America. There's Washington, and then there's a Pentagon shaped Versailles. It's called Washington D.C. It's called the DOD. There's Wall Street. There's a Silicon Valley. There's San Francisco, and then there's 330 million brainwashed cogs, and there never won't be that, who think they're American because they have it forcefully inundated, and they think capitalism is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're slightly questioning that now. But that's why Bernie's here for you, right? That's why AOC is here for you, to help you remember the truth, which is that capitalism is salvageable as long as we have some billionaires getting taxed or some bullshit. So then it's gonna happen. I'm telling you, 2022, 2024, it's gonna happen, fam. Just go back to work, you know. Just go back to work. And I'm not saying like don't work. Go back to work for that capitalist corporation. Go back to work for that, that entity. I'm not even saying don't work to survive. You gotta keep things running, right? But there's other work on top of that work. You also have to work to undo the structures that you're in, you know. And that's what we try to do at the Silver Spoon Cooperative. As a indigenous, left, native Hawaiian, anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist, anti-racist, anti-neofeudal, and anti-feudal, cooperative, democratized workplace / housing place / educational place. And so so school is a place where everyone is fed the idea that there exists a country and a democracy that cares about you, and that is government by the people, right? So every American who believes in American democracy is a successful neo-feudal imperial, a postmodern imperial subjectification of somebody who thinks they live in some kind of democracy. It's very important for people. It's important for people to, I don't even know how to convey some of these ideas sometimes, but, you know, having lived in, as I said, the most racist, capitalistly exploitative hellscape that the United States, which is the greatest Western superpower that has ever been produced, having lived in it, I'm like, it's very clear, you know, it's very clear, especially because part of Hawaii it's all collapsed, you know. A lot of the United States is more spread out. But in Hawaii, everyone is right on top of each other. That's what islands do. So it's more clear, right? There are literal billionaires living not 2,000 yards. The richest people in the world living on a hill in like Hawaii Kai or in Alewa Heights. These are places in Hawaii where I'm from. They're literally on a hill in a giant 200,000 square foot glass house with flying cars and 20 Teslas. And then half a mile down, there is the most impoverished area of Kalihi Valley of the entire United States. They're literally on top of each other. You know, this is part of the inspiration. I was like, what if I just like took my hometown, my home Ahupua'a, it's the Hawaiian word. You know, what if I took my home area of Kalihi Valley, and I took those ultra rich dickheads up there, and I took all of my kids that live 22 a house, eat ramen for dinner every night with spam and frozen peas and carrots if they're gonna be a little more healthy than just spam, and have no footwear, and they're getting shot by cops at the highest rate in the United States, and they're getting funneled into the prison industrial complex at the highest rate in the United States. What if I took that whole thing and I just like made it into a science fictional game? I can't make it about Hawaii because nobody would believe me, because the West brainwashing is so good and everyone's stupid or diseducated. So I couldn't just be like, I couldn't make a video game about, I don't know, if I had like EA times Disney Marvel resources, I could make a movie about it, but I don't have that. I don't have me, and then I have a bunch of publishers that are rejecting my game because it's too political, right? And so but if I could, I would just like project the whole thing out there. But you know, that's why I had to make Neofeud in the way that it's made, because that's the only way I knew to convey the things I wanted to convey. I work for multiple game companies as well, so I worked for corporate game companies before I made Neofeud. And you know, what was another one of the cogs in the machine of the Leviathan that grinds everyone up and spits out, grinds everyone up into the bread and the caviar and the brioche consumed at the highest echelons of the stratoplex, you know, of the imperial structure. And I was like sick of doing that. And I said, I don't want to work. I don't want to do Flappy Bird Clone 76. I don't want to do another idle clicking game. I don't want to do some, I don't want to like, make a football animation more footballier for some giant FIFA soccer or some giant AAA. I don't want to make the explosion sprite for an AR-15 some brave American soldier is using to shoot children in Fallujah, and then making that seem like it's a good thing. The U.S. just named its latest the U.S. Secretary of Defense Del Toro just named the latest ship the USS Fallujah. So that's the level that we're at. I can't even write cyberpunk anymore, man. You naming your ships after you goddamn war crimes. But which game? Anyway, that's a long one. I can't go off on that right now. The USS Fallujah, though, that is literally a ship that the United States has produced. I don't know if that's to celebrate the U.S. committing vast human rights violations and murdering children with its military forces in Fallujah, or if that's because the U.S. actually thinks that it saved Iraq or something. I don't know what level of that speaks to the quality of the diseducation and the quality of the conditioning of the Western United States led system, the capitalist Western system. Is that people think that Fallujah was like some kind of great freedom and democracy operation. Wow. Amazing stuff. Good job. Anyways, so I'm not on Abbot Elementary, but anyway, so back to Abbot though. So Abbot Elementary, I haven't really talked a lot about the show. I just watched the show. It's a fun comedic teacher workplace teacher space show, but it deals with the real issues, and it's Hollywood informed me that the creator was the black woman who is the showrunner was also a BuzzFeed writer, comedian, content creator, and then later on became the producer of the show. So that's the creator of the show is somebody that is like a millennial of somebody that's about my age and has probably some similar experiences to me, right? I think having worked in BuzzFeed is a corporate millennial mimetic fodder producing exploitation factory. Let's put it that way. So just like, hey kids, make something that other people who have nostalgia for 90s malls and Orange Julius and make millennials. I'm a Gen X or boomer, probably white man with way too many suits and 5 Maseratis, and I'm the BuzzFeed CEO. I don't understand the childrens who grew up with Doom and Nintendo and, they watched Titanic when they were 17. I don't know how to reference My Heart Will Go On in a way that resonates with the people who are on Tumblr and MySpace and, said shit like lol. I don't know what that means. But I'm a Boomer Gen Xer owner, and I would like to exploit. I don't know how to make content because I ran CNN or some other shit. I want to keep on making money, having people selling ad revenue based on the eyeball time of millennial and Gen Z people. Hey, millennial, come work at BuzzFeed and let me exploit the shit out of you. And then BuzzFeed employees have since that time gone, why the hell this is actually very important. It's actually similar. Like the Try Guys, like Holly, a lot of the Holly's favorite content creators and YouTubers are ex-BuzzFeed people, if I'm not mistaken. The Try Guys, there was, what is her name? Okay, Abbot, Elementary producer, Quinta Brunson, right? Is Quinta Brunson, producing, co-writing, starring in the Abbott Elementary comedy series. Abbott Elementary. Brunson gained prominence for a self-produced Instagram series, Girl Who Has Never Been on a Nice Date. And she was also formerly, before that, she was a BuzzFeed, 2 streaming series with the BuzzFeed Motion Pictures. And so she's kind of someone like me, worked for content farming, the digital neo-feudal serfdom farms. I've actually written articles. Fun fact, I actually wrote articles for these kind of things. I wrote, not very long, because I figured out why is there a staff of disproportionately non-white and women and non-men, millennial and Gen Z, right, churning out. It was actually a gaming article site, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll try gaming journalism. Why are there all of these women and non-men and Gen Z and millennials making 1 cent or less per word to write articles that people want to actually read? Right? About, I wrote one about why, Nazis need to get punched the fuck out, and Wolfenstein Shadow of the Colossus made the right decision by not kowtowing to fascists in 2017 when that was, everyone was like renaming Nazis into German combatants because, the West is a fascist hellscape that keeps his mask on sometimes and then not other times. And so, but I was like writing these articles. I wrote a couple. And I was like, wow, this is like really not good. I'm like working, I work an hour and I get $2 or something. And I'm like, and I'm like looking at all these other people. And then there's 2 Gen X or Boomer white guys who are like, oh, good job on that article. Yeah, that's really good. And they're talking to each other. Like I'm watching they're like kind of talking to each other. Sometimes they're talking to everyone else. All these like millennial and Gen Z, people like, Kinta and myself. Who have thoughts about things like, hey, this turf stuff in Harry Potter is messed up. Like, what is this? This is like J.K. Rowling is terrible. I don't know, just reviewing games and being like, this game is good and because of this and this and that. And I like, Horizon Zero Dawn is an anti-indigenous massive desecration of all of Anishinaabe and Sioux culture, and they should pay reparations for that war crime that they committed. And sometimes it's not as hot as that. But I wrote one about Wolfenstein, and I wrote 2, and I wrote one about cyberpunk and what the importance of describing the systems of neoliberalism, capitalism, making games always being political, whether we want them to or not, right? And then I wrote one about the punch Nazis and don't game companies, whoever they are, whatever size they are, should not kowtow to fascists asking that Nazis not be in games being punched or being shot, right? And then although actually I met a few people that I met and I was like, oh, you people are really nice people that I kind of still, they're all millennial and Gen Z writers kind of that were kind of like Quinta at BuzzFeed churning out all this content for the neo-feudal lord, a white guy, who owns BuzzFeed. And these other 2 white guys who were, and as I was saying, when they talked to all of everyone else, right? queer and indigenous and black and non-men and women that are doing all the brunt work, kind of like working in the office at the nonprofit that I worked at. Women and queer people, literally the manager, the actual go-getter, the most hardworking person who was maintaining all the schedules, getting everything coordinated, was a queer Asian man. And then there were women who were like doing the teaching and doing all the spreadsheets and keeping the office oiled, and all the secretaries and the people doing all the work. Women, queer people, and non-white. And the white guy at the top was a white guy, or a Hawaiian white guy, but the Hawaiian that sold his soul to the empire. Unfortunately, actually, I met two of them. One of them was very sad. He was like, "Yeah, my family live in the poorest area, one of the poorest areas of Hawaii." And they said, Hawaiian culture is gone. We got to be Western capitalists now. He actually told me that out loud. He was making he was like the second of the highest paid people at this nonprofit, making huge money flows coming through. And he's like, "We're all capitalists now." I was like, "Oh man, that's so sad, man." He's like, "Yeah, because my kids got to go Punahou, because if they don't go Punahou, how am they going to, if they don't go to the $30,000 a year school that Obama went to, literally, how are they going to get a good lawyering job or engineering job or a NASA job or some good job in Western capitalism?" Because we live in capitalism now. Hawaii's gone. Socialist, advanced, technologically modern, anti-racist Hawaii, non-imperial Hawaii is gone. Now we live in America. And I was like, man, that's so fucking sad. Anyway, so I kind of lost that train of thought though. But anyway, so my point is that like the two dudes who owned, right, the rich white dudes who owned both the website that I was writing for, and the one that owns that owned BuzzFeed. Everyone else is making almost nothing, and then these two dudes who don't understand how to produce content that anyone wants to consume, right? They don't know how to make tweets. They don't know how to make Instagram videos. They don't know how to make TikTok, right? They don't know how to make YouTube videos that anyone wants to read, because they're old, out of touch, mediocre, emerald, gold, or diamond diapered children like Elon, right? That's just who always has run the Western world, the capitalist world, the colonizer world. This bunch of clowns who sit on their mountains of privilege and have competent CIA agents and diseducated and think tank classes that produce the propaganda for them. So those people, anyways, I'm kind of like, Silver Spook is going into DEFCON 12 Silver Spook really fast, but those guys who are, I was like, I remember like talking to some of the other people, like, hey, do you guys notice like how exploitative this is? Or like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like half a cent per word to produce articles that people are clicking on. Well, these other two guys, what have they done? Well, they provided the startup capital for this company, BuzzFeed. They provided the startup capital for, I don't know, EA Games. They provided the startup capital for Walmart, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. They provided the startup capital for that crypto startup, right? So they deserve to make the most money because, that's just that's just how the things work. It's just, the job creators, they're like Lloyd Blankfein. They're doing God's work. Lloyd Blankfein was the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, who famously said, "We are the job creators." The CEOs of corporations, people who own companies, the capitalists are doing God's work. So that's a quote that's directly in Neofeud as well. King/CEO of the solar system, Warren Clinton Bush, says, "We deserve thanks for doing God's work." And for God, on the fifth day, on the eighth day, God created venture capitalist bros and hedge fund managers, and he saw that it was good. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, okay, so I'm gonna stop ranting about that. But so what I think is happening now is that there are a lot of people who have grown up in the end of the Western worlds, and the Western, by extension, the capitalist worlds, unfortunately, until for the foreseeable future. The people who grew up in the tail end of the post-World War II capitalists trying to put a mask on to appear capitalist, colonial, racist world, that's also known as the West, right? The U.S. NATO-led world, trying to put a mask on to pretend like they have some kind of, it's like decrepit Palpatines putting on an inch of makeup to look like a senator, right? That's the United States, and that's Europe, right? And Canada, etc. That's Japan. And then they're like taking that, burying their war crimes, like Shinzo Abe's family, taking that, and then making themselves look good. And it looked like it might succeed for 1950s, and the book succeed in scare quotes, because it's never been anything but what it always has been, which is Greco-Roman, British, French, American, feudal, capitalist, colonialist, racist shithole. So I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, but not sorry. Stop genociding Native Hawaiians and punishing children for speaking Hawaiian, fucker. So in Hawaii, stop poisoning our water at Red Hill. So the people who are the people who were born at the tail end of a 2,000-year failed experiment known as the West, right? Also known as millennials. So people were born in 1980. That's the beginning of the end, right? That's the beginning of the end for all of the capitalist world. The neoliberal was the final attempt, right? Philanthrocapitalism, right? Philanthrocapitalism is really like the final attempt. The Bill Gates of the world, right? Elon is saving the world by making a multi-planetary civilization, and he's investing in all this green technology, and look at his Tesla electric car. He's going to save the world. How's that going, by the way? Everyone believed in Elon. The United States and the entire capitalist world put all of their eggs and all of their then $1.50 per dozen eggs, now $16 because of hyperinflation eggs, in the Elon basket, and they go, he's going to save the universe. You remember this, right? Or do you have Western education induced amnesia, and you can only remember what happened in the last 5 minutes, right? Like you forgot that the U.S. started the last 10 wars based on lies, but then you went in along with Ukraine. So Elon, he was a philanthrocapitalist, right? I'm a billionaire, right? He was given the most beautiful airbrushing in the most highest grossing film the West will ever produce, also known as the Avengers series, especially the Infinity Wars. Iron Man is a billionaire, philanthropist, arms dealer, playboy, right? And that will save the universe. He has failed. And the United States is falling into a civil war, it looks like soon. There was already a coup. There was actually kind of a shadow coup that was quickly buried when Donald Trump ordered the United States military and hundreds of thousands of rounds of lethal ammunition moved from forts in Florida and Texas and across the country into DC, and he was preparing to order firing at protesters. And DeSantis and Trump are preparing for that now. So the United States is failed already. It's already basically failed there. But the neo-feudal brainwashing continues as the water fills with vinyl chloride and the teachers quit by the million, so all the serfs keep on eating this shit, they keep on eating this garbage, right? The serfs living in this, it's not quite as ugly as a literal Brazilian favela or a shadow city around Mumbai, or the worst part of Hull in the so-called great country of Britain. The so-called Great Britain. It's not as shit as Neofeud. They're not literally levitating yet. But everyone is still they're living in a fantasy land, thinking that they are, they're living in a fantasy land, thinking that there's some kind of hope in the United States-led so-called international, so-called rules-based order, which is not really that international. It's more like, well, Europe, I call Europe is the 53rd state of the United States. Canada is the 51st state. Australia is the 50th state because Hawaii is not a real state. And the United States, it's not really an international order. It's a United States order of all of its vassals and itself. And then the international community is Brazil, Russia, India, China, Africa, and South American Pacific countries that are coming out from under this, in a multipolar world. But everyone inside the West still lives in Neofeud land. And they're increasingly going to live in more Neofeud land, And Abbot Elementary is important show, I think, to kind of tie it back to that, because in the consensus, like in Neofeud, there's also that phrase like we can always manufacture more money, like we manufacture consensus reality. The problem is they can't manufacture more money now. The U.S. is in the neo-feudal phase where printing infinite amounts of money only works when you have planetary world reserve currency status and dollar hegemonic control and military hegemonic control, which the United States is losing now. So that part of Neofeud is not correct. So I will say that I'm like, well, it's not correct in our continuum, which is kind of good, So Neofeud is maybe, luckily we might have. I mean, well, in the United States you're still under the hegemony, but in the rest of the world they're coming out from this. In outside of the U.S.'s, the chess pieces that are not owned by the grand chessboard player, the non-rooks and the non-pawns, the pieces of the world that are playing Go, right? China, Russia, and India and Africa. Well, to the extent that they are getting out from, because India is in a different. They're not in a fully out place yet, but certainly China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, places that are constantly the U.S. is trying to start a color revolution in, places that you're hearing human rights violations and genocide are happening in, out of anywhere in the Western media that is funded at more than $1 million, level. Those kind of places are coming out from that structure. But everyone who is a pawn or a rook or a knight or a queen in the United States, I would call it the United West, really. You should call it the United West. The United racist, capitalist, feudalist, colonial shithole, right? With Greco-Roman, British, French, Spanish, American characteristics. All of those pieces are being slowly consumed by its own chess player. That is DC, Wall Street, Silicon Valley. Or the global billionaires ultimately that operate out of the United States. They don't like getting their head chopped off in China. You know what I'm saying? They don't like getting reined in by it's not necessarily socialist, but the different structures of places like Russia. They don't really appreciate that. They like it when the United States tries to install neoliberalism in a place in Asia, right? But the United States, which is the global capitalism defender, right? It coups countries when it needs to get rid of Hawaiians, right? That were socialists. It gets rid of Bolivian socialists, but then it's failing to get rid of Evo Morales. It has to get rid of Castro, but then it failed to get rid of communists and socialists in Cuba. So the United States can't control even Africa. Janet Yellen, when is begging, so I just watched a video of an African leader telling off the German in Namibia, saying, you have to watch out for China. They're buying up all their land. Oh my God, the Chinese are here. And the German said that the African person said, you have a lot of nerve coming to Namibia after you committed massacres and colonized us. You German. What are you talking about? If the Chinese were capable of doing the colonization that you're talking about today, the Germans would be doing it. So, and so the Europeans, who have their head 50,000 miles up their ass, and so far up their ass is up the United States' ass. The Europeans are now the pawns. The Europeans used to be the kings and the queens, in feudalism, archaeo-feudalism, and neo-feudalism. But in neo-feudalism, the Europeans are the pawns being consumed by their new masters, the Americans. But the Europeans understand that system because that's what they've always had. You pay out, you find the totem pole, you find the structures of the hierarchies of the world. You find the roads that lead to the Rome, right? You get on that road, you get to the Rome, and then you get as high as you can. The Europeans have always understood this. The kings, 90% of all of Britain's richest capitalists, the CEOs of the Virgin Airways, the millionaire, billionaire classes in Britain, 90% of them are all former lords and ladies. So capitalism. It never really not existed in the West. It's always been there, and it's always a part of a dynastic, metropole centralizing, a structure, and it's about ascending that. It's about maintaining that, and then stabbing each other in the back to get higher within it, right? Sending emails to your boss saying that the other person who is vying for the corner office was actually cheating, like making stuff up, lying, cheating, stealing, killing to get higher among the totem pole, to say that the other employee who might, or the other employee is actually trans. This actually happens. That other employee at the game company who wants to become the tech lead on the next Overwatch competitor, that programmer, he's actually trans. He's trans. And if you find out that and that could be dangerous, because most of our gamers at this first-person shooter company we work at, they don't like trans people. That could be explosive. So I don't think you want to hire that guy, because what if he comes out as trans? That's a liability. I'm not even joking. So being trans at a corporation and then outing your disabled, autistic, and because being disabled or having some kind of medical, physical disability, I mean, the corporations don't want you around. Right? It's eugenics. So outing disabled people or possibly trans people in corporations and other situations to get rid of them, and then you get the job, and then you ascend higher. So the people that make it to the top of the totem pole are the worst, and that's the devil's advocate with Keanu Reeves, right? And that's the kind of system, and that's why you have shitty systems in the West. That's why you have colonizers. That's why you have racists. That's why all the worst people run your shitty countries, right? Like that garbage German, right? Or like people like war criminals like Obama, right? If you're black and you made it to the top, you got to be extra terrible and very good at your job, very competent imperialist. So, anyway, I'm going off in a lot of directions at the same time, but the Abbot Elementary is a show. Coming back to the show, before I went off on that journey, is made by somebody who is lived in the dying ages of this structure, the millennials, who were born as Reaganomics was beginning the finance capitalism, something that's called finance capitalism, neoliberalism. Not producing concrete products, butchers making meat, candles making candles, candle makers making candles, butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers making cakes, candles, meat, agricultural products, physical, tangible products. This is what people are saying. People are recognizing this now. Russia actually has an economy of energy and agriculture, and you might not like things about Russia, but they actually have Nord Stream they used to have Nord Stream pipelines that were sending gas. Until the Germans until the Europeans were just like, oh yeah, blow us up and fuck us all over. Now we're paying all of we have double-digit decline in industry. Everyone's losing their jobs, and we're all in the dark now. That's fine, America. We're just a European pawn under neo-feudalism, and you're the king, daddy. Fuck us over, America. We'll pay 5 times as much for your crappy natural gas, and we'll be, but I mean that's so European though. Think about it. It's very European. They've never had any democracy there, so it's normal for them to just bend over backwards for whoever is the biggest king or emperor with the most guns and centurions. You look at that and you go, oh shit, okay, let's do whatever daddy said. Or you try to fight him if you have somebody else who has enough. If a king or an oligarch or a capitalist or a ruler can get enough money and power and troops together, you can go try to fight him, and that's World War I and World War II. But usually, if it's the U.S., Europe can't do shit about the U.S. So the Europe is just over there going, okay, whatever, daddy. Right? But Russia is not like that. China, they're not like that. They're not perfect. They have many contradictions and problems. But they have actual economies under them, and whereas Europe is all based on backing the U.S. Money printing system. Germany was the one place that actually had industry. And that's the sad thing. Even Germany, the place that was making some, trucks and some, tech products and, manufacturing, German steel, German glass making. Germany actually was an industrial site in Europe until very recently. And now it's, its own neo-feudal rulership, that its own, U.S. puppet rulers that are being paid off to destroy whatever real economy was under there, are destroying it. And it's too bad, It's kind of like, I know there are some Germans who are like, we gotta kind of get out. We gotta get out from under this thing. I don't know if this is gonna work out too good. And disproportionately, they're millennials, because as we can kind of come back to that point, the millennials in the neoliberal era was the era of no longer making the products, selling them, and making money. It was about producing system analysts, right, to produce financial products with the computer technology that was rolling out at the time. So the invention of the computer technology, the mass access of Chile's stolen copper that was going into all of the IBM, all the Nakatomi plazas and all the giant, glass skyscrapers filled to the brim with server towers and office cubicles with people sitting at the computer, moving digits and moving, digital NASDAQ stock and yen into drachma and drachma into pounds, and, getting the, there are always capital flows, but the speed and the rate and the fluidity of the capital flow, and also the jet aircraft where you could have the emissaries flying rapidly from Japan to Tokyo to London to LA to, Bolivia, and then you're into Chile, coups that country, then you fly back to Washington D.C. Oh, we're gonna coup next. Okay, let's go to Brazil. So the jet and the computer were technologies that were integral to the evolution of the neoliberal era in some senses. In other senses, it was always going to happen, but in some senses, it facilitated the speed at which you could move money and power across the planet, and resources rapidly across the planet, and decouple more so. Well, decouple what was more coupled together post World War II in the place like the United States, where people who were making cars, were producing cars, were buying the cars that they were making in the United States. There was some industry, right? There was industrialization. There was the military industrial complex, which is not good, but there were some actual things being produced in the United States. And then by the time you get to the 80s, right? And I recently had a stream Pretty in Pink about the deindustrialization and the impact of that in places like Detroit that you can see with Harry Dean Stanton's character losing his job at the auto plant, etc. Michael Moore's earlier work, blah, blah, blah. But so the neoliberal era is kids who were born then, and they're going, millennials were 1983, 1986. You were kind of okay, well, you had video games and you had movies and you had 90s movies and you had malls and you had this, in some senses it was and then the fall of the Soviet Union was oh, yay, we're all going to be, America wins, capitalism wins, the West wins. Zbigniew Brzezinski writes The Grand Chessboard and the game plan for American primacy for the next foreseeable future. Francis used, U.S. geostrategic director for decades under multiple administrations. The neocons show up and they're yay, America's going to rule everything. Russia's gone. We're going to take Russia and the world will all be subservient. All of the world will be our pawns and our rooks and our knights. Europe will be our rooks and our knights, and Japan, and the rest of the world will be our pawns. And all their resources and all of their slave labor will be ours. And China will fall soon. Everyone will fall into lockstep underneath us, and all the roads will lead, as they once led to Rome. And actually, Brzezinski makes a very important point. The United States was the first planetary superpower. All the European powers, Britain had a lot of the territory, but it was always split between Britain, France, Spain. Europe was never united. The United States was the first country to have complete planetary hegemony. For the parts of the, in the parts of the world that were Western, the completion of the hegemony was to take Russia and China, break them apart, and subjugate the entire Earth under its neo-feudal tower, right? But it would be like the Roman metropole that reached to the, a crystalline Roman space elevator touching a tower in a literal Elysium, like in the movie Elysium from the late noughties, Neil Blomkamp. And then that would be the ultimate Rome. Would be all of everything is under our purview, right? That would be like the agency Asimov space Rome. I think I did a video about Asimov's. Was it the agency? No, what was that called? Foundation series. Yeah, it'd be like the Foundation series Rome, where we could just build. We can control everything, and all of the wealth of everywhere will come to us. There will be nobody that ever gets an education ever again, except the 0.0001%. Everyone will be stupid, idiot, serf, slave, colonized, working, temporary embarrassed millionaires forever. That was the dream of the United States. Go read the Grand Chessboard. Just read it. It's for free. You can read it for free on the CIA.gov. The United States failed, though. Is failing. The United West is failing. And so millennials were going, okay, well, I thought everything was gonna be great in America, and we're gonna have pizza and apple pie, and we're all gonna be rock stars and musicians, or maybe we'll have some kind of maybe. If we don't become a rock star or a movie star, if I don't become Brad Pitt or an extreme skateboarder like Kelly Slater, if I don't become like Kelly Slater or what's his name, Tony Hawk, or if I don't I don't know, become a director or something fancy and famous, maybe I'll at least become like. I'll be like, Thomas Anderson in The Matrix. I'll be like a programmer, or I'll be like, I work at Microsoft, or I'll work, I don't know, maybe I'll work at, I don't know. I'll work somewhere and I'll have like a decent living as a middle-class person in the great American country or something. It's right? Something. And then you're like, wait, what the fuck? I'm working like 12 hours at BuzzFeed, making like $2 an hour. What the shit? What? I'm like temp driving. I'm like temp gig surf driving for Uber Eats and Uber, and I'm making like $3 an hour when you minus the taxes and the gas and the car insurance. What the fuck? What the shit? Wait, I'm working at Amazon, literally herniating 3 of my spinal discs and like jumping to reach every 11 seconds, a box full of Funko Pops and like a orange Julius orange juice refill thing, and I'm just like breaking my ass working 3. I'm teaching, and then I have to work Domino's Pizza after. I'm teaching all day long. I work from 7 till 6, 7 till 3, dealing with kids amped up on fucking fruit punch and red dye 40 and McDonald's hyper salt infused breakfast, and I'm like burning out really fucking fast. And then I get out of class at 3, and then I gotta stay from 3 to 6 to prepare the next day's lessons, tidy up the classroom. I gotta spend my own money. To buy pencils and paper and toilet paper for the classroom whose roof is fucking caving in. Are you kidding me? And then I gotta go deliver sausage supreme pizzas and cheese pizzas for Domino's from 6 till 10. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not joking. Teachers are doing. There's a video. A teacher made a TikTok. I'm gonna show you in a little bit. Teacher made a TikTok going, Why am I working 11-hour teaching days and then 4-hour part-time pizza delivery just to afford my basic rent and food? And I live with 5 other people in a 1-room bedroom room share. That's like a normal word. I'm like horrified. I didn't live through the period where the word room share was just a normal thing. Or just I was like, no shit. I mean, people who have polycules, I mean, it's like I'm glad that the young queer youth are recognizing their trans and non-binariness and ace and aro-ness earlier than some other people. And I'm saying as somebody who is now I recognize I'm like non-binary gender wise, but it's like part of the people. How can you live in a 1-room flat with a broken toilet and broken kitchen and nothing with like 10 people while paying rent to your landlord with like 1 or 2 bedrooms, everyone's sleeping together, one person sleeping on the kitchen stove, right? And not like be I mean I was thinking of how what if we had like all these other people living with us in our bedroom? How do we have our like romantic and intimate time? It's like, I mean, it would be really hard, that's a long story short. And I'm not saying that that's why polycules are more common now, but I mean, it's hard to, anyway, the point is that that's not an appropriate amount of space. If black people want to be living in a room together, that's one thing. But people are being squashed and squeezed and crunched and destroyed, and the millennials were Gen X kind of got the tail end of that. But if you got a college education, and especially if you're a white dude or even a white woman, maybe you might come out just okay enough. But the millennials were kind of like, our generation was the generation that was like, this deal, I don't know, man. This American, and the U.S. had to do extra, they gave millennials, oh, look, Bernie, oh, look, Obama, oh, hope and change, we're gonna do a socialism. Yes, we can. We're gonna tax bill. Here, have an AOC. Do you feel better about that? Here, have a fucking gift card. Have a $10 Subway gift card for your 10 years of slaving away for this shitty school or this shitty government or this shitty Walmart. Here, have a BuzzFeed subscription for working your ass off. Kinta. Have a it's like, fuck you. This is not enough. This system sucks. Anyways, So some of that is like real actual anger in there that's like coming out. But anyway, long story short, so that the millennials who are the generation in certain, no, it's different around the world, right? But in the places like the United States, is a place where it's like, as somebody has experienced it, it was like this is really, the things are falling apart, and now things are really not working out, and things are only getting worse. And not only that, then you add climate and planetary crises, right? That wasn't a thing in the 1920s. You didn't add to that planetary ecological mass destruction, right? In 1920s, you also didn't have nuclear annihilation. In 1920s, there was no multipolar socialist and communist countries that were or counter-hegemonic forces that were so strong as are today. So the 20s is not really actually, in some senses, the Great Depression has some similarities, but the Great Depression happened when the Western colonial racist capitalist system still had it was a lot stronger in a planetary sense. Today it is far weaker. It's far weaker. If there were other countries that were as powerful as the U.S.'s enemies today, they're not really the U.S. The U.S. has enemies. The other countries have people that they look to possibly be friends with, but currently have to try to stop them shooting down the weather balloons. You know what I'm saying? With China, just don't waste $100 million shooting down a weather balloon with your fucking F-16s. Are you lost your entire mind? United States, it's just a weather balloon. These things fly around. Like, what are you shooting that down for? Stop doing that. That's you're like, it's like the Chinese are actually trying to help Americans get healthcare by saying, America, stop doing that. The Americans, the Canadians are over there going like, we have to hate China. China is why things are bad in Canada. That's the story I was hearing from all my Canadian friends that are up in there. They're all like, everything in Canada right now is, we have to stop. China is meddling in Canadian elections, stopping the government from providing healthcare and increasing the living standards and material conditions of Canadians. It's all China's fault because they meddled in Canadian elections. It's like, wow, amazing. Canada's really trying to be extra American. That's what I think. It's like Canada's just like, I think we can out America. We're gonna literally accuse this country of installing some, I don't know who exactly they're talking about, but it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, everything's ridiculous, but the kind of stories they were saying, even to a diseducated Canadian person, which is all their people, it's pretty ridiculous. The bathroom's broken. I got to take my teacher salary and put my nothing salary with my rent increasing to buying my own, pizza for my pizza party that we're supposed to have money for. Everything's falling apart. The roof is caving in. I'm like, oh my God, this is like so teaching in the ghetto, man. Teaching in the impoverished areas, right, of cities. And I was just like, yeah. So it's a show that's like, it's very like, it's a very good show that's very like Neofeud. And Neofeud you can get on Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can get it on sale there. You can also get it on itch.io. You can get Neofeud. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I'm just like, I don't know why I'm talking so fast right now. You can also get Pigeon with Gun, a game where you play a pigeon with a gun that stops gajillionaires, bougie gentrifying F-16 pilots, fights heart-stealing liberal Valentine card politicians, and lots of corporate-owned cops with the help of lots of fun friends and in a comedy game. And you can also get, if you like Silverspoon, what about that country that like just like kicks the shit out of the colonizers, right? And you said there's a country that has an education system, and it wasn't Cuba. Oh, that's right, it's Vietnam. You want to learn how Vietnam got an education system? It's a game called Decolonators. True story. Kick capitalist colonizer butts out of Vietnam in retro arcade game glory, which is myself and Luna Oi, our Vietnamese comrade, who helped plays the main character and was the main advisor on this game. Luna Oi was a very important educator. See, listening to Luna Oi for a few hours was more education for me than K-12 and 4 years K-12 at a $20,000 per year fancy prep school, and then 4+ years of college. So just listen to Luna Oi. You're gonna learn a lot more than anything else you're gonna learn anywhere, even in the Western so-called left. So you don't have to only listen to Luna. Luna is just a good source. Woman is a book by Holly that is it was written by Holly, that is from her perspective as being raised in a right-wing evangelical Protestant Christian culture,
and it is not a historical retelling, but a work of fiction. And Holly is also, it's a book that's about criticizing conservative North American culture that Holly's from. And it is a book that you can get for free, or you can throw us some money when you pick it up if you would like to support us that way. Also, you can, as I said, you can support us through Patreon, patreon.com/Neofeud. And so on patreon.com/Neofeud. And it is any amount of support helps. You get access to the Silver Spook Discord, the Silver Spook University, the Silver Spook updates on what we're currently working on when you become a Patreon member. So consider doing that. And finally, I went a little bit longer than usual, so I'm trying to blast through this. I was talking super fast, but still somehow it took longer than usual. So you can also follow at Silverspook Games at Octodon.social, at Silverspook Games at Mastodon.social. And on Mastodon, you can follow Silverspook Guy on Twitter, or Silverspook Games for the game stuff on Twitter. There's Facebook, Instagram, and there's also, if you like I was talking about the cyberpunk game stuff earlier. So if you like cyberpunk game stuff, you can also follow Terminus C. Terminus C is a Terminus Cyberstar, which is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim that is based on Deus Ex PC games like Deus Ex and System Shock. It is a send up of those types of games. I'm the content director and lead writer of this game. So if you like the cyberpunk games like Cyberpunk 2077, but you don't want to give money to a multi-billion-dollar corporation that put out a shitty game that was broken on the release and is half broken now, that made two separate billionaires, you can Terminus Cyberstar is a 3D cyberpunk game that is currently almost done, and is you can follow and join the Discord if you would like to do that. Holly, so Holly is at the Tech Fairy, writer, poet, educator, moderator here, producer and manager. Holly's dropping all the important links, so people are like, Silverspook, you're making all that stuff up, and Holly's like, nope. Very important work that Holly does here, as well as producers and manages for KNX TV, also known as The Lounge Show, Chaotic Cabaret for The Goblin in You. Holly is also parent, caregiver, administrator here at the Silverspook Cooperative. Holly also is tweeting important things like that. And so follow Holly as well. Thanks again to Holly for dropping all the links for people who would like to investigate the things that we're talking about. Also, thanks to all the people who are on the list of people who are Patreon supporters. Without your support, it'd be very hard to do this. Again,